Welcome back to Love and Hard Money. I'm Brian, and this podcast explores a simple but powerful idea that hard money allows us to project love into the world beyond just our family by insisting on honesty and truth in economic relationships. Today I want to tell you about a children's book I wrote called The Winds of Uncertainty. It's a story about scarcity, abundance, and why the money we use matters more than most of us ever learned. You can download the book for free at my website, and if you want a signed hardcover for your kids or grandkids, those are available for Bitcoin only at satoshigeneral.com. But before we get to the book itself, I want to tell you why I wrote it. I wrote this book because I believe our money is fundamentally broken, and it's going to take at least a generation to heal our relationship with it. I wrote this book for my kids because nothing I read when I was a kid helped me understand what money actually is. Our kids grow up and we send them out into the world with this implicit instruction: go forth and make as much money as you can to have the best life possible. But we never teach them the properties of money. What makes one money good and one money bad? Most people work their whole lives to earn money without ever understanding what it is they're working for. It reminds me of that old story about an old fish swimming past two young fish and asking them, "How's the water, boys?" The young fish look at each other confused and say, "What's water?" Things left unquestioned always go unanswered. The Winds of Uncertainty explores one of the essential properties of good money: scarcity. It's based on a thesis I first encountered in Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow, that abundance in money creates scarcity in everything else, and scarcity in money creates abundance in everything else. That's a counterintuitive idea, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The story follows a community that discovers what happens when their money supply keeps expanding. The winds, representing monetary inflation and unfair taxation, literally blows away their prosperity. The hero in the story, a boy named Eldon, learns that when money is easy to create, it becomes harder to save, harder to plan, and harder to build anything that lasts. Now, when I decided to create this book, I had a choice to make. I could have used AI to generate the images. It would have been cheaper, faster, and honestly a lot less work. But I chose a different path. I've been following an artist on Nostr who went by the Bitcoin Painter. His style was exactly what I had in mind for the story: whimsical but grounded, accessible to children but not dumbed down. Bitcoin Orange and Nostr Purple feature prominently throughout the book, along with little nods to Bitcoin culture woven into the art and the text. But here's what mattered most. Because he was a Bitcoiner, he innately understood the story I was trying to tell. We didn't have to go through endless explanations about monetary inflation or why scarcity matters. He got it right away, and that understanding came through in every page. He did countless remakes of some of the pages until we got them just right. I'd never done anything like this before. I didn't know what I was doing half the time, but he had the patience and the vision to work with me, and I paid him in Bitcoin for his work. I'm extremely proud of the finished product. I could not be happier that I chose to work with him instead of taking the AI shortcut, because we created something that has humanity in it. You can feel it when you turn the pages. That's something no algorithm can replicate. I also hired a book designer whose business is called The Libertarian Book Designer to do the layout. He was willing to accept payment in Bitcoin as well. During the process, I introduced him to Nostr. So now we've got this little circular economy: Bitcoin payments, Nostr connections, human creativity, all working together to create something for the next generation. Since finishing the book, the artist has renamed himself the Purple Painter to align more closely with Nostr's purple branding, and honestly, that feels right. This project wasn't just about Bitcoin. It was about building something real with real people using tools that respect our sovereignty. I've only sold about 10 copies of the book, and I'd have to sell 300 just to break even. That's probably not going to happen. But this isn't about making money. This was my gift to the Bitcoin community, so that the next generation can have one little nudge toward understanding intuitively why Bitcoin is valuable, because it's scarce, and why fiat currency is a poor store of value, because it's abundant. Now, this idea of hard money versus soft money isn't new. In fact, we have a remarkable historical example of what happens when society chooses sound money. In 1252, Florence minted the gold florin, a 24-karat gold coin that maintained consistent purity and weight for centuries. It became Europe's standard currency for international trade. The Medici family built their banking empire on the stability of this coin. And here's what's remarkable. The stability of the florin allowed capital to accumulate in ways it couldn't under debased currencies. That accumulated capital funded what we now call the Renaissance, the greatest flowering of art, architecture, science, and human achievement the world had seen since ancient Rome. In the book, Bitcoin is Venice, authors Alan Farrington and Sasha Myers argue that the florin may have been a key catalyst for the Renaissance. Sound money created the conditions for long-term thinking, for investment in beauty and knowledge and things that mattered beyond immediate consumption. The Medici used their florin-based wealth to patronize Michelangelo, Botticelli, and Leonardo da Vinci. They built libraries, sponsored scholars, and commissioned works we still marvel at today. That's what hard money does. Creates the foundation for human flourishing. Now contrast that with what happened to the US dollar on August 15th, 1971. That's when President Nixon closed the gold window, ending the dollar's convertibility to gold. It was supposed to be temporary. It became permanent, and everything changed. There's a website called WTFHappenedIn1971.com that documents this with dozens of charts. The most striking one shows wages decoupling from productivity. For the entire history of the Industrial Revolution, up to 1971, as workers became more productive, their wages rose proportionally. After 1971, productivity kept rising, but wages flatlined. The gains went elsewhere. Housing costs relative to income exploded. A house that cost 3 to 4 times the median income in 1970 costs 8 to 10 times that today in many markets. But here's what's less obvious, and maybe even more important. We also see cultural degradation begin. The divorce rate, which had been relatively stable, starts climbing sharply in the mid-1970s. It's not the only factor, but when money is unstable, everything else becomes unstable too. Why? Because when money is broken, it breaks the signals that coordinate human behavior. When the dollar was tied to gold, even loosely, there were limits to what government could do. After 1971, those constraints disappeared. Government could print money to fund any program, any war, any bailout, and printing money is politically easier than raising taxes or cutting spending. But printing money doesn't create wealth. It just redistributes it, usually from the people who can least afford it to the people who are closest to the money printer. This creates terrible incentives throughout society. When money consistently loses value, saving becomes irrational. Why save dollars if they'll be worth less tomorrow? So people are pushed toward consumption or speculation. We get an economy built on debt and asset bubbles instead of savings and productive investment. When government can print money, we get dependency. Why work when you can lobby for subsidies? Why innovate when you can seek bailouts? Why compete when you can buy favorable regulations? Fiat money creates ever-increasing dependency on government handouts, which leads to symptoms we experience as degradation of culture, society, and opportunity. People blame capitalism for these problems, but what we have isn't capitalism. It's a weird fusion of free markets and centrally planned money. We let the market set the price of everything except the most important thing, money itself. And that distortion ripples through everything because money is half of every transaction. That's why I sometimes like to shock people with the argument that free money is more important than free speech. Try building a bridge with free speech alone. Hard money is the inverse. When money is scarce, truly scarce, like the florin or like Bitcoin, it rewards savings. It rewards long-term thinking. It punishes waste and inefficiency. It forces even governments to live within their means. That doesn't mean hard money creates utopia. Nothing creates utopia. But hard money creates better incentives, and better incentives lead to better outcomes over time. And that's why I wrote The Winds of Uncertainty. I want my kids to understand that the problems in the world aren't random. They're not inevitable. They're the result of a series of choices that have been made, often by well-meaning people who didn't understand the second and third order effects of those choices. We will never create utopia, but we can move asymptotically toward it by choosing hard money. The book is written for children, but the lesson applies to all of us. When money is easy to create, life becomes harder. When money is hard to create, life becomes easier. Not immediately, not for everyone equally, but over time and on average. That's the message I want to plant in young minds, because the kids reading this book today will be the ones making decisions about money and economics in 20 or 30 years. And maybe, if enough of them understand this one simple truth about scarcity and abundance, they'll make better choices than the generations before them. You can download The Winds of Uncertainty for free at my website. I've linked it in the show notes. If you want a signed hardcover copy shipped anywhere in the US, those are available for Bitcoin at satoshigeneral.com. Now, I've mentioned Nostr a few times in this episode, and if you're not familiar with it, let me tell you why it matters for this conversation about sovereignty and hard money. Nostr, some people call it Nostr, I don't know why, they're probably wrong, is a decentralized social protocol. That means no single company controls it. No algorithm decides what you see, and nobody can deplatform you. It's social media built on the same principles as Bitcoin: open, permissionless, censorship-resistant. Nostr is an acronym for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. What that means in practice is that the relays store your notes, not the platform. There are multiple apps that let you access Nostr. I use Primal and Damus, but there's also Amethyst and a lot more that I don't even know about. It's a rapidly iterating space. If Primal ever decided to censor me, my notes would still exist on the network of nodes, and I could pick up right where I left off on another app. I own my content, which is a very different model from other social media platforms. I've got about 1,200 followers on Nostr, and the conversations there are different. More thoughtful, less bots, more genuine. Because when you remove the engagement farming incentives of corporate social media, you get back to what social media should have been all along: real people having real conversations. The artist who illustrated my book, The Purple Painter, is on Nostr. Look him up. The designer I work with is on Nostr as well. We're building this parallel economy, this parallel culture, using tools that can't be captured or corrupted. If you're serious about hard money and sovereignty, Nostr is worth exploring. It's early, it's rough around the edges, but so was Bitcoin in 2011. I'm on there and I'd love to connect with you. I'm not trying to make money on this book. I'm trying to plant seeds of understanding about what money is, why it matters, and how the choices we make about money shape everything else in our lives and society. Because at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is about: love and hard money, the connection between honest money and a life well lived, between sound economics and human flourishing. If this episode resonated with you, I'd appreciate if you'd share it with someone who has kids or grandkids. And if you want to support the work, the best thing you can do is download the book and read it to a kid in your life. Start a conversation about what money is and why it matters. I release episodes every Tuesday, but last week I tested doing a bonus episode midweek that was a little different from my normal monologue format. This week, I plan to release an audio version of me reading The Winds of Uncertainty aloud. There's already a video of it on my website, but that was without any recording equipment, and I want to put something out that you can listen to while you follow along with the pictures in the ebook. Maybe someday I'll get fancy and turn it into a video for Rumble and YouTube. Let me know if you'd enjoy that in the comments. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.